Okay, so the first topic that we're gonna hit is, graphs of F prime, which is the same thing we're kind of on in class right now. And, well, usually I just jump straight into the free response to questions, but I'm gonna just warm up a little bit on the 1998 multiple choice number 2. So everybody find 1998 packet, multiple choice number 2. And it doesn't get any simpler than this, and it should also be thinking we just learned how to do this, yes? Okay, it says what is the value of the integral from -1 to 4 of this function? Okay, so I want you to make sure you recognize that the name of this function is f, not f prime or g or anything else. So no calculator on this part. How are we going to find the value of the definite integral for this? What are we going to use? Geometric area, yes? Okay, so we're going to find the area. I probably would break this first part up into a trapezoid, although you might want to do 2 rectangles, 2 triangles and a rectangle, but we're going to use area. So I'm going to do that trapezoid. 1/2. The height is from here to here, and that is 2. And the 2 bases are this and this. Here's the first one, okay? And it didn't ask me to find the area, it asked me to find the value of the definite integral, okay? So if I find the area for this section right here, it's positive, but if I find the definite integral, it is negative, so that's a minus negative, okay? And that's also a trapezoid, 1/2. And the base of that one is this distance right here. So I didn't write it down. Is that a 1?
Yes.
So you could, instead, you could put a plus here and make that a -1. You all see how that fits with the value of the function? If you wanted to do it that way. The thing is to make sure you're recognizing whether you have to keep that thing negative or you're supposed to make it positive. And then the 2 lengths are this and this, if they're 2 and 1. Okay?
I'm just wondering, I just clarifying, you know that you're looking for the negative if it doesn't specify that it's the area?
Well, there's a couple of other circumstances, but yes, if it says area, you make them all positive.
Right.
If it says definite integral, you keep the signs attached.
Okay.
Okay, so does everybody see? There's gonna be one of those on the AP exam somewhere, okay? All right, the next one, and that was, the answer was B, okay? All right, the next one is number 79. You think that secret will uncover these secrets? I have no idea. I think we need more towards Susan. But I don't know. Okay, so this time, and this graphs are not the graph of F, or the graph of G, or the graph of H. They are the graph of F prime. Okay, and this is one of the keys to what's going to go on here. The question asks for which one has a relative max. That's what it's asking. Okay, so you're going to get asked about relative max multiple times throughout your exam. Okay, in the multiple choice and in the for your response, you're going to get asked for it more than one time. What are you looking for when you say relative max? Everybody think, what are you looking for? What? F prime changes. Positive to, that's what you're looking for, F prime, G prime, H prime, whatever it's called. So you write that down first, and then you go look and figure out how to figure it out. Does that make sense? Okay? So I need to find out, is there any place where one of these derivatives changes from positive to negative? Okay? Which one? It actually is F, and it is right there. Yes? Okay? So the answer would be F element. Okay? Question? Okay, those are sort of the 2 fundamentals. All right, go over to the next page, to number 82. All right, and there's that notation that we've just been talking about. Yes? There's that notation we've just been talking about. So one of the things when you look at this, you need to recognize is that if you take the antiderivative of f of x, you're going to get what? Big F. Take the antiderivative of the left. That's the same thing as antiderivative of big F prime, and that means the answer is F. As an indefinite integral, okay? And if this question just said f of x right here, if all it said was f of x, then if all it said, oh, shoot, I'm not going to work this in all the way through. No, we can't. We'll just get started. But if this said f of x right here, then the answer would be big F of 3 minus big F of 1. Okay? I forgot when I looked at this. We haven't done this yet. We haven't dealt with this right here, and so we can't completely finish this problem. Okay? But for right now, you see that that's what it would be if that were just a plain old f of x. Okay? And I bet that answered one of the choices. Yes? Is that one of the choices? No, it's not. Oh, okay. Well, the only choices in there had, they had to figure out what you could do with that too, and we're gonna get to that. We just haven't done it yet. Okay? All right. So next, I want to move to 2004 exam. The 2004 exam. We're gonna look at question number 5. There it is. That's exactly what that was. 2004. Within your 2004 packet, there are 2 exams. There's the 2004. I don't think it says Form A. Does it say Form A? No, but if you go halfway through it, there's the 2004 Form B. Did everybody see that? Okay, they did this for about 10 years. They gave us both of them. They don't do it anymore. If you went on and looked at what you could print out, they don't have a A and B. The B one was the one they gave to people who couldn't take it on the day that it was given. That's what it was. And so it doesn't have any scoring statistics, like they don't have 50,000 people taking it, they only had 120. So they don't give us any scoring statistics. But this problem right here is a very straightforward application of what we have just been doing. And it should look very similar to the homework that we just did. So here we go. Okay. There's 2 different ways you could consider doing this. We're going to work 2 or 3 of this style problem together, and they're in different exams. So I worked them, and I put it in the exam, so it's right there with it. But I've had some other people who want all of these problem styles on one piece of paper, and then they can go look back and look at a problem style. And that's just a different way to do it, okay? Many people choose not to write on the actual paper that I've given you so that they can work the problem over again and not have anything written on it. Yes, it's just a possibility. Okay, so I've basically just copied the picture for 2004 number 5. And not copied it very well. Okay. Everybody with me? Yes? Okay. Is everybody on this one? It's all in. Okay, so here's the graph. This will look similar. Y'all probably made it. This exact graph may be the one that I gave you the other day. It says it's the graph of F, but here's this creature right here. See this? Right there? So what are you supposed to remember when you see that? You're supposed to remember that G prime is the same thing as F. Okay? They are the same thing. So if I ask you a question about G prime, I'm asking you a question about F. This is what we just did. Okay? Ready to go? So what's G of 0? No, wait. Just think for to make sure you know what you're gonna. Okay, we don't know. Okay? So G of 0 is the integral from -3 to 0 of F of T. And you'll notice that they don't define that function at the top as F of X or F of T, they just call it F. That's what anything you want to do. Okay? So when you see a definite integral and you have a picture like this, your brain needs to automatically go to geometric definite integrals. And does anybody else notice anything about the definite integral values? One of them's when they go. Do they go in order? Baby, oh, they got a little. Okay, you wanna make sure you pay attention to these numbers on your definite integral from -3 to 0. And you are only finding the area from -3 to 0. And I know the very first time I worked with this question, I found the area from here, all in 0, which is not -3. So just watch out, they're not kind of tricky, once you read what they said. We need the area from -3 to 0, we need this. Okay. That's what we need. So what is that shape? Exactly. And area of the trapezoid is 1/2. The thing that connects the two parallel bases, and then the sum of the two parallel bases. The sum of the parallel bases are vertical here and here. So the distance that connects them is this, which is 3, and then it is 2 plus 1.
Yep.
And that is 1/2. Okay. All right, and the next thing it asks you in the same question is G prime of 0. And that's where you're supposed to say, if it asks me about G prime, that's the same thing as asking me about F. What's F of 0? So you can go up and read the graph. F of 0 is 1. There you go. Yes? Okay? And this is going to be a free response question on your exam, almost certainly. Something similar to this, okay? The second question says, find the relative max. Now I'm going to stop right here. Find the relative max of what? What does it say find the relative max of? Of G. Okay? Make sure you are writing down G in your justification. How do you justify a relative max? G prime. Positive to negative. Write it down. We're good? And G prime is the same thing as F. You can write either one of those. You don't have to write both of them. Okay, either one of them, but you have to know that they're the same thing. And then just tell me what. Where does that happen? Where does G prime? Where does F change from positive to negative? Okay, so I justify and then I answer. That's full credit. Okay, justify usually means words, but sometimes really well done mathematical process is also okay. Okay? All right. Question number C takes us to absolute min. Now we've done absolute min, but we haven't done it connected with this. Okay? And anybody remember how absolute min differs from relative min? Remember what you have to do? You're right, just a fingers. Okay. You have to do something extra when you're told you absolute min. Okay.
You have to check the endpoints.
You have to check the endpoints. Yes, you have to check the endpoints. So when it says absolute min, you have to tell yourself check the endpoint. Absolute min will be on this exam somewhere. It may be in this kind of problem, or it may be in some other kind of problem, but you're going to have to do the absolute min. Okay, the absolute min of G again, right? So I need G at the beginning. On -4 to 5. Yes, so I need G of -5. I need to find that. I need to find G at the other end, which is +4. And then I need to find G any place that there might be a relative min. Okay? Now I love that they added relative max and D, and now they're doing relative min. So where is there a relative min?
-4.
G prime changes negative to positive, and that's at 6. So you have to find G of those 3 things. Okay? Find G of those 3 things. Alright, how do you find G? Single, or -3 to whatever, of F. definition of the function, the definition is from -3 to whatever you plug in for x, okay? Everybody see that? Okay, so when you get to this part, once again, pay attention to that definite interval, because, this time, two of these are backwards, yes? It's going from -3 back to -5, so you're gonna wanna put a, negative in front of that. That one, and I think the bottom one too, right? And then you have to find area, okay? So now it's just a matter of paying attention to what your actual areas are. Okay? So from -5 to -3 is this triangle here, and this triangle here, and they're not the same size, or are they? I think they were same size, aren't they? Look at those two triangles, are they the same size? Yeah, and one's negative and one's positive, so what's it gonna be when you add them together? 0, so definitely, G of -5 is 0. Alright, G of 4, and notice that you don't start at -5, the definition says start at -3, okay? So we've already done from -3 to 0, yes? Where do you do that?
The top
We have to go over the top, and that was 9 halves. So from -3 to 0, height is gonna be 9 halves. And then I've gotta add, 2 more pieces to that. Alright, I'm gonna go over to this end here. You see these two triangles? Are they the same size? Yes, one's positive, one's negative, so that's going to be 0 again. So the tricky part to this problem is this stuff underneath that circle. This little stuff underneath that circle, we did one like this. No, they're both positive. Oh, you're right, I'm right. So this is a semicircle, and if you kind of think of it like this, like a box with a bite out of it, it would be that rectangle minus that semicircle. You'll see that? Look at a box with a bite out of it. So, that's gonna be, what's that box? 2 times 1? Minus half a circle, pi, and the radius was 1. And then I'm gonna stick that plus 0 on the end. That doesn't matter. If you notice that there's zeros, you can just leave them out, okay? But for the sake of us seeing all our pieces. So this thing right here turns out to be 2 minus 5 or 2. So it's 9 halves plus 2. I run out of room. Number 9. I'll take the truth. They don't care. If you leave the answer like this, that's full credit. You leave it just like that, they won't care. Okay? 9 halves plus 2 is 2. Alright, and then back up and do the last one from -3 to -4, or from -4 to -3. Did I forget the negative? Oh, yeah. So from just this triangle right here. What's the area of that triangle? 1 times 2, yes, 1 times 2, and I need to make it negative. Okay, so negative 1/2 1 times 2, which is. Okay, and what was the question? I've done all this work and I forgot what the question was. Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, well, it's not 0, so it's either this thing up here or this, it's either this or this. And, it's not unusual for there to be a question like this, where you have to have a little bit of number sense, but they don't actually expect you to find the number. For pi over 2 is 3.14 divided by 2, so it's like 1.5. And, so 3 halves, so 9 halves plus 4 halves minus 3 halves is going to be a positive number. And so you should recognize that this right here is going to be the absolute min. So how do you word it? Absolute min is what? -1 occurs where? At. And it never hurts to say that. Okay? And they actually asked you to find the absolute minimum value. So you have to make sure you have that value. Okay? All right, and there was one more question, isn't there? One of the reasons I like to start with this problem is because the first question is easy, the second question is pretty easy, the third one's a pain in the neck, and then the last one's easy. Okay, and so don't get scared if you get to one that's a pain in the neck. Okay, point of inflection. How do you find any point of inflection? Now this problem's G, right? G double prime changes sign. And there is no G double prime. We don't have G double prime. We have to look at the slope of G prime. Yeah, so just walk you through it all. The slope of G prime, which is the same thing as the slope of F. All right, so we're looking for where the slope of F changes sign. Any place the slope of F changes sign. Okay? So that is the picture. The slope is positive, and then it is negative. So at -3. And it changes here, but it doesn't change sign. Y'all see? With that next place, right here, for the people watching online. And then it is negative, and then it is positive. So we need this one. So at x equals 1. And then it is positive, and then it is negative at x equals 2. So it's -3, 1, and 2. Okay? How's that feel? Okay? Long? Okay, so you typically have 15 minutes per problem, per free response question. That's kind of how they lay it out. You will have at least something you have no idea how to do, so you'll have more than 15 minutes for all the ones you're actually going to do. Okay? All right, I want to show you the free response, the scoring guide for this question. Which question was it? All right, so the scoring guide for this question, this is just sort of one possible way to have your work written down. It is not the only way. Many of these problems have multiple ways to do it, but over here they're telling you, they just are giving you a point for getting the right answers here. They basically don't care about your work. That's what they're telling you, okay? 1 point for getting G of 0, 1 point for getting G prime of 0, okay? On the second question, you get 1 point for telling me the answer is 3, and 1 point for a correct justification. And they've given you one of those correct justifications. Like I said, the ones that they put here are usually the most common one, although I have seen a couple of them that are kind of weird. But most of them are usually the most common. All right. For question number 3, you notice that you have to identify that relative min as a possibility, and it doesn't say it here. Oh, it's only 1 point if you forget the endpoints this time. Did you ever see that? So you get the relative min, and they're only doing 1 point if you forget the endpoints. I've seen this done another way, where it's a 3-point question, and they've written down max if endpoints are not considered. So they're kind of not completely consistent with the way they always do it. Okay? And then the last one, there's the 3 values. You've got only 2 points. So if you only get 1 value right, you don't get any points. But you sort of see how these are. They're pretty thin, but they're there. Okay? Everybody see? All right, great. Let's take a look at the next question. So in the second half of the 2004 packet is a 2004 Form B. And not as many people took this, but they're usually very good questions. And they're not harder or easier, they're just different. They generally test the same content, but not completely. Number 4, right? Okay, and I didn't write down anything else, I did read a picture for this one. So read through that little paragraph and see if you see anything in that paragraph that you think you need to note. They want to make sure that you are clear that right there is flat in both of those places, okay? It is not the graph of f, it is the graph of f prime. So they skip that little step where they say g is equal to the antiderivative for the definite integral. So just tell you straight out, this is the graph of f prime. So make sure you understand, you're not looking at f, you are looking at f prime. What else does it say? F double prime too? Okay, it says it's twice differentiable, that means you don't need to worry about, derivatives being, undefined. Okay, twice differentiable, I don't have to worry about the first or the second derivative being undefined. I can take this derivative, everything. But it doesn't mean that that next thing is a derivative, it tells you that f of x is equal to 6. If they give you something like that, and you don't use it, that's an effect. I don't know what we're gonna use it for yet, but we're gonna use it. Okay, guaranteed. Okay, so what's the first question? X coordinates of the points of inflection. Give a reason for your answer. Also known as justify. Okay, give a reason for your answer. And Ms. Farmer says you give the reason first, and then you answer the question. So, point of inflection. It's not F, yes, it's F double prime changes sign. Am I looking at F double prime? No. What am I looking at? F prime. So what do I actually need to look at? Slope. Either of these things. You don't need to write both of them, but it isn't going to hurt. Either one of them gets you the justify point. Okay? And then you need to look at it and then answer it correctly. Okay? So where does the slope change? X equals 1, x equals 2. The two places where the slope is 0. It does in fact change. You good? Doesn't seem like no one's been able to use this question. It's like it's used all the time. Okay, because somebody looks at it and they start thinking of it as f prime, f. Okay, second question. At what value, oh, there's another absolute min question. At what value does f attain its absolute min? And max, is it both of them? Yes. You got both of them.
So on that question, we already gave you the interval and this one is the interval.
Almost always. And look, I won't even say most of the time it's the same interval, it's up there, because remember that other one of the intervals was just a piece of the function, but then we'll reiterate the interval, yes. So you're looking, the question they asked us is the point of inflection of F. Yes? And this is not F. This picture is not F. Right? If this picture were F, the points of inflection would have been probably 2 and 4. But this picture is F prime. Yes? Okay. All right, so absolute max, absolute min. Okay? So, we need to figure out something about F at the beginning. So what's F at the beginning? F of what? F of -1. I need to know something about that. I need to look at F at the end, which is F of 5. Those are my endpoints. At least write them down. And then I have to look anywhere where F prime changes sign. Okay, because I want maxes and mins. Okay, anywhere where F prime changes sign. That's going to give me maxes and mins. Possible maxes and possible mins. Okay, possible.
But also where F prime is 0.
Okay. in order to know where it changes sign, it either has to equal 0 or it has to be undefined, okay? So it doesn't always happen when it equals 0. So for example, look up here. Does f prime equal 0 right there? Yes? Does it change sign? Then I don't need to consider it, okay? All right, where's another place where f prime equals 0? 4. Does it change sign?
Yes.
Yes, f prime changes from negative to positive. So the other place I have to consider is f of 4. And then your job is to figure out something about each of those values, okay? And the problem is this time don't say anything, and they're not geometric, correct? If I agree that they're not geometric. Alright, so this one requires us to do a little bit more thinking. There are a number of ways that you can figure this out. Okay, we also need to look at the graph on yours rather than on mine. And mine's not on the scale very well. Put it in your dog. Of that, yes. Okay, so I want you to kind of consider the, all right, first of all, the value of f of 1 is some unknown number. There's nothing here I don't know what it is. I got no idea. There's no definition of this variable. I have absolutely no idea what negative 1 is. Some number. Okay? I can say that f of 5 is whatever f of negative 1 is, plus the value, the definite interval for negative 1 to 5 of f prime. Okay, this is one of the things that we went through last week, is that accumulator, the start value plus the amount of change. Yes, remember that? So if I say, well, let's start at negative 1, and then I'll just add up everything else. Okay, now, whatever this first start value is, whatever this value is right here, consider the sizes. This is negative 1, right? Negative 1, is that where negative 1 is? And then 4 was here, and 5 was here. So consider if you added these negative values in, and then this positive value in, okay? And just tell me, is f of 5 going to be bigger or smaller than f of negative 1? Am I adding more negative stuff to it, or am I adding more positive stuff to it? Positive. So I'm starting at f of negative 1 is some value, and then when I put this in, then what does it do? It goes down. When I put this in, what does it do? It goes down. And then when I put this in, what does it do? It's up a little. Okay? So I'm not going to write this on the board, but you've got to get into words that concept, that you recognize that whatever that value is plus this is less is going to be less than that. Okay? That's basically, you've got to say that. Okay? That's going to happen. You can actually do it for this also. This one, the interval from negative 1 to 4 of f prime of x dx is also less than a. So since these two are both less than a, what's got to be the max? You've only got 3 choices, and 2 of them are less than the other one. What's the max going to be?
A.
A, yes? So the max is at x equals negative 1.
What is that before we said?
It says, this is a plus. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. I can go from my negative 1 to okay. So this one has to be the biggest, because it gets smaller, and it gets a little bit bigger, but not nearly enough to make up for how much it got small, comparing the sizes of the areas. Okay? And you can also use that same thinking to compare f of 1 to f of 4. If you start at f of 1, or to compare f of 5 to f of 4, well, you tell me. Think about this for a second. F of 4 is a plus these two numbers. And f of 5 is a plus these two numbers plus that number. Which one's bigger? Which one's smaller? Okay, let me write it one more way. F of negative 1 is a. F of 4, I'm going to put that one next, and then I'm going to put 5. F of 4 is a plus b plus c plus d, but these are negative. Yes? No d. And then f of 5 is a plus b plus c, which are negative, and then you add some back in. Okay? We add some back in. So this one's the biggest, that's for sure. Everything smaller than that. How can you tell which one of those is bigger?
Well, one of them you're adding some on.
Yeah, you're adding a little bit back to that one, yes?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's gonna be the absolute minimum?
The one without D.
Negative 4. So the absolute minimum is gonna be at x equals 4. Now, the reason I picked this question for this, the second one for us to try, is because while it asks you the same things that the other one did, it's not as concrete. Y'all see?
Yeah.
You've got to really sort of think it through and think how you're going to say it. I've seen several answers where people say what we did in words, like well-structured sentences. I've seen one that got full credit because somebody used this idea of labeling these areas to give some sort of concreteness to those values of the definite integral. And then I saw one that I read and I'm like, I don't even know what that says, but they gave it full credit, so that's pretty wrong. Okay? So there's no one correct way to answer the question. Okay? All right, one more on here and then we're gonna stop looking. Okay? All right, question.
Is that what we have to do ourselves?
Yes, well, if I were doing this, if I had 15 minutes to do this, I would figure this all out in my head, and then I would try to make it look better. Okay, does that make sense? You would need to say it in a way that makes it a little bit better. Better sense than what I did. All right, question C. Read it. What is it asking for? First of all, it gives me a new function, yes? All right. G, I want the equation of the table line and x equals 2. Anytime you have to write the equation in the line, what two things do you need? Point and 4. That's what it's from. Okay? Ready to find them? So G of 2 equals 2 times, I don't see, I'm just going to plug it in. Okay? And G of 2 equals 2 times. Did I tell you were gonna have to use it somewhere? Yes? If they tell it to you, you're probably gonna have to use it, yes.
I'm just curious, why did, when they said f of 2 equals 6, did they do the whole weird, the function of f was differentiable?
They said that the differentiable thing to, so they wouldn't have to get upset with people who didn't consider where f prime was undefined. Because nobody remembers to do it. Okay, you know how when you're looking for maxes and mins, you have to consider where f prime is 0 and
Yes.
where f prime is undefined? And the same thing for second derivatives and point inflection. They were allowing you to let go of that. That's not going to happen in this problem.
Okay, so
That's
they're
all.
saying there's no undefined ones.
No undefined derivatives. Okay, all right, so what's f of 2? It's, what do you think you would probably write if you were not being careful, if you were tired, because you hadn't gotten enough sleep the night before? You would read 2 comma, and 1, 2 rest, okay? But you're supposed to say f of 2 is 6, so g of 2 is 12. Okay, I got one piece. What's the next piece I need to find? I need to find g prime. I'm gonna pause for 10 seconds while you think about what you're supposed to do to find g prime. Okay, 2 words. Product rule. Y'all see it? I even put a dot there. Doing the product rule. So let's see if we can get product rule for g prime. G prime is, let's say the product rule. What's product rule? Everybody go. First times plus second times through. Y'all write it down all different ways. Y'all remember us doing these before? If there was a nasty one on something that was like half page long. Okay? So then watch the notation, that's not G prime of two, that's G prime of X. So G prime of two is two times F prime of two plus F of two times one. Okay, that's F prime of two. Now it's negative one, okay? Yes? And what's F of two still? 6, and so G prime is 4. And then your final answer is y minus 12 equals 4 times x times.
We don't have to rearrange that.
You don't have to rearrange it, and if you rearrange it and it's wrong, they might take one away.
On it.
Okay? All right, we'll stand up and take a breath. Okay, so what we're gonna do for just a minute now is kind of look through the rest of the packets and identify which problems are graph of F prime problems. Y'all understand? Okay, so there'll be nothing going on at the board for a little while, those of you who are listening online. Okay, so pull out the 2005 packet. Okay, and kind of also our first go at seeing what these packets also have in common. All right, we're looking for something that seems to be talking about the graph of F prime. These packets that I've given you have 3 no calculator questions and 3 calculator questions. The new format is 2 with the calculator and 4 without, so be aware of that. So in the 2005 packet, it's kind of hidden. It's a hidden question. It's hidden in question number 4. So 2005 number 4. Number 4. And I'm going to talk about this question because they used to have this question on every single year, and now it only shows up every once in a while. But it ought to be something to get right because we'll spend time on it. They're describing what a graph looks like, and you've got to draw that graph. Okay? Question A asks you something. I don't know what it asks you. The question B says, draw this graph. Okay? Now go down and look at question C. It says G plus T, or G of X, is equal to the definite interval from 1 to X of F of T dt. And guess what you just drew in B? You drew the graph of F. Okay? So do you see how this is the same question? It's just that you have to get to it first. All right? This is less common, but this is not the only time they've ever done this. Where this graph of G prime is sort of headed or buried in another problem. Okay? And then look at question D. What does it ask you for? Of what? That makes a difference, right? So which one does it ask for? Point of reflection of G. So can you see that these two things are the same thing we just went over? Yes? Okay. You should be able to work this problem. So mark it. The top half of it, there's not a lot of examples of that problem that I have to give you. I think I've got one more from the recent past because they don't do it every year. But if they do it, you ought to be able to do it. And you have to get it right in order to be able to work C and D correctly. Does that make sense? Okay. Go through, keep going through 2005, part B. I don't think there's one in there. For form B. No. Oh, no, there it is, 2005, form B number 4. 2005. This was a little harder, but that doesn't mean you can't take a stab at it. 2005, form B, number 5. There it is. Okay, take a look at 2006. See if you can find it in 2006, the first part. 2006, don't go to the Form B, did you find it? Which one is it? 2006, what? 2006, number 3. Okay, 2006, number 3, let's see if I have a comment about that one. The A through, A, B, and C are normal, straightforward. Really, because I've written down a D is weird. No, A and B are normal, C is weird, okay? Every AP exam has a weird question that I can't prepare you for, and this was it this year. This was one where you had to just have, to manage to put a couple of things together, okay? So look at Form B, and let's see if we find the one on Form B. I want you to mark them and recognize, I want them written down somewhere that you're like, these are all Grass F prime problems. Does everybody understand? So, and then I'll tell you I'll see what you do with that. Okay, look at 2004 Form B, 2006 Form B, which one is it? Ladies, y'all find it? 2006 Form B, it is number 2, okay? And these two right here are on the part where you get to use your calculator. So we're actually going to do this in just a minute, okay? So we do one, then we get to do it in calculus. All right? I want you to find the ones. There's one on 2007, and there's one on 2007 Form B. Find them. Find either one of them? For B, it's number 4, that's correct.
It's number 3 for us.
It is number 3. Everybody go back to look at number 3. Okay. It is not immediately obvious that it's number 3, but where does it show up and become more obvious? Get question C. Okay, so there's a table in this one, and then it's question C, and probably D also. Is it? Oh, D is an inverse function one. This one's interesting. I haven't seen this one. It's not exactly a typical problem, but it uses the same information. Does everybody understand? Okay, so you're going to do 2006 Form B number 2, use your calculator.
Form B number 12.
Number 4. Form B. So here's what I'm going to do now with you, okay? We're going to justify each one of these answers, and then I'm going to let y'all work together to try to then find the answer, okay? Make sure we all know what we're supposed to be looking at. So the first thing you've got to recognize is that this graph that they've given you is not the graph of F. This is the graph of F prime, and that they've given you some scale, but they haven't given you any actual values that are of any use whatsoever. Right? They're giving you these numbers and they're like words. Okay? All right? Although, what else did they tell you? Read the problem. And somewhere in this problem you need to use that. Yes? Make sure you've written that down, maybe jotted it down right at the top. I think 0 equals 5. And if you get to the end, if you're like, I never used that, then go look again. Okay, what else did they tell you? They actually give you the function. You have your calculator, so you are not allowed to panic. They got those at the time. and there's the graph. Okay, so when you put this graph on your calculator, you need to try to make it look like this. Okay, that makes sense? So that's why they've given you these numbers here, so that you can get to that window here. Okay, all right, so A, what's question A asked? Read it. They asked you about the concavity of that. Yes? Okay, and, so stop, don't put it with a baby. Write down how do you determine concavity. So what do you want to write down? That's double time. Greater than zero is concave. Up. That's double time. Less than zero is concave down. You want to note that you do not have that double time, so what do you actually need to look at? Everybody. Slope of that prime. So look at slope of that prime, okay? And they gave you an interval, all right? I got me a point. I can get all the wrong answers in the world, I got me a point, no zero. Yes? I did have 2 points. All right, look at question B. What does it ask you for? Absolute max. What? Okay. On the whole thing, from 0 to 3, right? So, what do you need to find? Before that, endpoint. I want you to go to endpoints first. F of 0, you got to figure out how to find it. You got to figure out how to find F of 3. And then you have to figure out how to find F of count race. Where F prime changes from what? Positive, negative, because we're doing max. This is the relative. Well, this is the relative one. Okay? So take a look at, we can do that one pretty quickly, can we? Well, we can look up there and find it. Where does F prime change from positive to negative? Oh, yeah, right around there. Okay, but don't do 1.7 because this is a calculator question. Yes? And remember, you can also go through and label these, A and B, and use that labeling thing. All right, question C. Write an equation for the tangent line. At what? Okay, you want to get right here. And you want to look at this problem. What's the name of the function? Of 2. And you have a 2. They already asked you to find f of 2. Sometimes they will ask you to already do it.
No.
Okay, sometimes they won't want you to do it. And then what else do they ask me to find? Have fun. So we have now set this up. And how long really does it take to go through? You've got 40 points out of 9. The embedded in that. You see? And then you can go back and find those things rather than finishing one and finishing two and finishing three. Does that sort of make sense? Okay, so I'm going to stop the tape.
So you would recommend going through all parts of the problem before you start?
Yes, I do recommend reading every bit of it so that you know where it's coming. Okay, so like that one with the table, halfway through you've got this thing, and you're like, oh, I better get part B right, or I'm never going to get part C right. Or I better at least draw a graph for part B, or I'll never be able to answer C. Okay, so I'm going to pause, and we are simply going to work on this. Those of you who are not here will need to check in with me to see if you got the right answer, because this was almost an hour long, and it's going to be forever to say it. Bye.